Welcome to the Carson Career Summer Series. My name is Amy Tejeda-Lan, and I am the Industry Connections Coordinator at the Carson College of Business. And I'll be helping to facilitate today's webinar, Landing an Internship, Steps to Success from BP. As our attendees log in, we'd like to remind our participants of some helpful ground rules. Please make sure your microphone is muted upon entry to prevent echoes during the presentation. Please consider turning on your video so the presenters can see your face. Q&A will be in the end and throughout, so feel free to put your hand up or put your question in the chat. WSU students, please make sure to complete the survey at the end of the session in your chat. We'd also like to note that this session is being recorded. Thanks to all of our participants for joining, and now, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our presenters as they introduce themselves.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Laha. I'm a recruiter here with the Early Careers team. Just to do a technology check, I want to make sure that everybody can see our landing page of our presentation. Someone give me a thumbs up. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that. Awesome. So with technology being sometimes unpredictable, I'm going to go ahead and take myself off camera here. Just to save some bandwidth here as we go through this. So bear with me a second, folks. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself as Mike Laha, right, the Early Careers team member here working to bring in the next generation of talent to the organization. And I really have a wonderful, wonderful position here at BP. I sometimes feel like my job is not work, and believe it or not, sometimes we're guilty about taking a paycheck, because I get to work with folks all across the U.S. to bring in the next generation of talent to BP, and I'm very excited to be presenting here with my team members from BP with the WSU students today. I do have a military background, served in the Marine Corps from 2000 to 2005. Like I said, I worked with a bunch of great individuals here over the last years to bring in experienced hires and individuals who are just starting their early careers. So during my time in HR, I've actually had the chance, believe it or not, to review over 100,000 resumes and definitely had a chance to see a lot of great experiences that people have. I am an avid outdoorsman. I do enjoy time outdoors with my two kids. I love going hunting and camping and spending time with them. With that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce my panel members who I had a chance to work with here and providing this information to you here shortly. But I wanted to give you an agenda item here that we'll be talking about. We will be covering recruitment process. What does that look like for companies? Interviewing, what are the types of interviews that you'll get today in the new post-COVID environment? We'll cover networking a little bit more in regards to how to do that in a virtual environment, how to do that while you're in school, and things you can do even over the summer as well. And then we'll jump right into the WSU alumni team that I had a chance to bring in to the call today. A great bunch of folks, and we'll have this be interactive. Really want to hear from you in regards to questions that you may have specific either to the recruitment process, interviewing, networking. So type them in the chat, raise your hand. I'd love for it to be interactive. I definitely want to make sure that we get as much participation and things that we're hoping to learn today as they happen. So definitely utilize that function. And then two, what are the benefits, right? We'll cover a little bit more at the end in regards to having an internship or having your start of the career here at BP. So with that, without further ado, let's jump right in to the process, right? What does that look like? And keep in mind, folks, these next couple of slides I'm going to be talking with you about here, I like to focus them, sure, not only on the lens of BP, but I wanted to provide this information to you as a benefit, not just, regarding our process, our practices here at BP, but to give you an overall general understanding about what networking and interviews and resumes can be helpful for you, even if you're not considering a position here at BP. So obviously, when you go out there and you find an internship and you read through the full job description, you'll apply online. Our applications, a lot of companies are going to open up their applications here around the early part of the summer. So, you'll start to see postings in July and in August. Ours will open up at the end of August. So definitely keep an eye open for those either on Handshake or whatever resource that you use to do your internship or job search process. A lot of companies do have a first round interview that they're doing virtually. We are definitely along those same lines because, as you can imagine, it is very logistically heavy to bring in folks for an interview. But you have the application process that 200, 300, 400 students could apply to an internship. So we use the first round HireView video platform to start selecting candidates based on values and behaviors and some pieces to their educational background in kind of narrowing down those applicants to a more manageable number, because that manageable number usually will look like about anywhere from 10 to 15 people to come in for a final round interview. And we've had to do this now in the COVID environment in a virtual setting, that final round interview. But after that interview that can really take all day, it's a two-way street, the interview process. So, obviously we'll ask you some interview questions, but we want to hear from you. What are some questions about our programs, our developmental career projection that you may have as an intern or as an early career college graduate? So we do a lot of teamwork and interaction during that interview. So you will have things like a case study typically companies will offer, or a problem that you need to solve. One of the things that's neat about what we do is we actually put people in this like kind of trivia escape room to where you have to go through different levels to work in solving the problem. And the interview process, I think, is going to be maybe changing here in the future as these COVID numbers start to decline. But I would definitely prepare yourself, and we'll talk a little bit more about preparing for an interview. But I would definitely say prepare for both virtual and in-person interviews. With that being said, I do like to communicate right after the interviews, typically within a week to 10 days, to let people know if they're receiving an offer. It can typically take that time to calibrate with my leadership team about those 10 to 15 people we brought in for an interview to determine who would be a better fit for our organization. And really, onboarding process starts about 90 days out. It is a pretty thorough process that we do background checks and things of that nature. So there's a lot of different things here within regards to the process that you can do to prepare for your next internship or your start of your career. And I think it all boils down to a couple of things. And one of those is your interview. You obviously want to make sure that you're prepared as much as possible, but where do you start? After you've successfully spent days or weeks putting together that resume and you've submitted it, been to those career fairs. Now, what do you do for preparing for an interview? I think it's always important to start at a great foundation and knowing your resume and making sure that your experience and examples are there so that you can provide those specific situations, those quantitative measures, and speak to your resume during an interview is definitely important. Preparing for an interview is definitely a lot of practice. You need to make sure that you're preparing for the technical portion as far as whether it's business or engineering. Do you know some of those key terms that are in that job posting or are that a requirement for that role? I think it's also important to make sure that you do your research in that behavioral-based interview to what is the community of prior applicants saying that they do. You can go on tools like Glassdoor, Indeed, ZipRecruiter, just to kind of name a few, or even better, the folks there at the WSU Career Services Office can also help you to research common behavior-based questions, prepare those scenarios so that you can use your resume to speak to those examples. I definitely think it's important too that when you're preparing for a behavior-based interview, that you look at several examples that you've had in school and outside of school. I think preparing for an interview in those examples to cover, whether you've had a job in the retail space or maybe you were a lifeguard, those are great examples that you can use to show teamwork, collaboration. I wouldn't be worried about, those experiences being, not maybe a fit for the role or whatnot. Trust me, folks, my experiences that I've had, even working at a restaurant when I was in high school and college, those examples that I've had in teamwork and collaboration are still in practice with me today, because I do have client groups that consist of obviously my business teams that I support, but also too, the students that I support as well. And when you have a chance to look at all those different things that even, a retail position or another position that can teach you, they are very relevant. Because again, you're preparing for your early careers. We know you may not have the solid example of a global cross-functional teamwork that some of the folks here at BP may have. We understand you're an intern or a recent college grad, and those examples may be a little bit different from a person who has 5-10 years type of experience. Preparing for an interview is also very important in regards to the attire that you wear. If it is in person, obviously you want to make sure that you are dressing for success. Make sure that you have everything you need, whether that's a suit or a new outfit to present the professional you. I think that's very important. Also in the virtual environment, you definitely want to make sure that you're dressing for the position that you want. It is something that obviously people will remember, so make sure that you do that. The next piece I wanted to cover is in regards to networking. But before I do that, I'm breezing over a lot of these slides here, and I want to make sure that I cover all the points that I think are key. But I know the team that I have here will cover, maybe tools, tips, and tricks that they have recently used within the last couple of years or even couple months in regards to interviewing that they can find helpful for you. But is there any questions that we have so far on behavior interview preparation, Amy or team? Okay, awesome. So the next portion that we'll talk about is networking. And this is very important, folks, because at the end of the day, I always heard the term, it's not about what you know, it's who you know. And that does have some truth to it, but it's more importantly the truth of who knows you and who knows your brand. So I think networking is very important. Networking can be done in a lot of different ways. And while you're there on campus, I think it's very important to look at what you're doing outside the classroom. Recruiters always get the question, well, how can I stand out? I think it's very important to look at what you do outside the classroom and utilize that network. What I mean by that is, are you joining student groups that are focused around either, your discipline that you're going to school for, or is it a social piece, or is it, something with diversity and inclusion? Those are great ways to build your network on campus. And what that tells me as an individual is that you are looking to do something a little bit more above and beyond. Hey, folks, the GPA is definitely important, but I would rather take a person with a 3.2 GPA over a person who has a 4.0, for example, meaning if they've gone to leverage themselves in the Society of Women Engineers, or maybe they've gone to Alpha, or maybe they've been a treasurer in their finance club, right? So that is a great way for you to build experience, but it's also a great way to leverage your network on campus, because in a conversation that you may have with one of those groups, you may find out that, hey, they have a referral. Referrals are critical for students, obviously, working in that discipline, and definitely can give you that upper hand when applying for a internship, or when looking for your first position out of college. It can also lead to job opportunities. Hey, that person in my finance club did let me know that BP is specifically looking for a finance intern for their midstream group in Chicago, and they actually gave me the name of the recruiter. Hey, that now referral has turned into a job opportunity. So I definitely think it's important to look at your brand. And as we jump into the next slide, you'll see why I said that it's not about who you know, it's who knows you. And it does come down to personal branding. You can know a lot of different people, but who knows you and your brand is very important, because LinkedIn is a great way for folks to talk about a lot of different things going on in their industry, for such things as low carbon initiatives and net zero for BP, to hey, there's a externship that a company is doing and they're advertising it, and you've had a chance to build your LinkedIn profile, and you're getting out there connecting with a lot of folks, and somehow now you've made that referral to that organization or that person. Now, when you look at the slide, you might be surprised at some of the numbers, and I know this information probably is updating very quickly. People obviously are looking at LinkedIn for their professional network, and folks, the LinkedIn profile, I can't tell you how important it is to build that who knows you brand, because I was doing a session here the other day with a group, and I was just totally captivated by the student and totally interested in some of the things that she was saying and talking about, and how well she was polished. And I wanted to go out there and find her on LinkedIn and find out who she is, right? Find out a little bit more about her brand. And surprisingly enough, I could not find this person on LinkedIn. I don't know if they were afraid, or they just didn't want to put a profile out there, or maybe they were spending other time on social media platforms. But LinkedIn is the professional world gold standard, in my opinion. I always think that you should be looking for people in your field, in your area of study that you would want to connect with. You want to follow them, see what kind of activity they're doing, because maybe they got an internship, maybe they might post some advice. It's great to really get a better understanding about what's going on in your industry, in your company, and in your area too, with LinkedIn. But it's a great way for you to exercise your communication skills. What I mean by that is I'm always fascinated how people use their resume to talk about how they're great in communication, both verbally and written. I see people all the time here on LinkedIn who are sharing and commenting, and those are great ideas into how they communicate written and verbally as well. So if you have the chance to share an article about something in your industry or your discipline, do that, because that also not only will show that communication ability, but it'll also show you do have a genuine interest in, accounting or finance or IT, whatever the case may be. But it's a great way, as I had mentioned to you, to further ways to show your brand in regards to the profile picture. I need to stress this. Folks, LinkedIn is definitely a lot different from some of the other social media platforms. It should be a professional photo that you have. You don't need to go to a professional photographer. I had a friend of mine take my LinkedIn photo, but definitely try to keep it as professional as possible. So with that, I think the key points here to revisit on landing an internship are going to be, understanding the process, right? What are the companies doing? Do they have an online application? Do I need to apply at the website, or do I need to apply through Handshake? What's the next step? Is it a video interview? How do I prepare for that? Make sure that I understand what other people are saying who maybe had an internship or had an interview there. What are they saying on the different media channels as far as their interview process is like? And then obviously preparing for that interview. Do I need to make sure that my technology is working? What are some things that my IT friend says I should do to save bandwidth? Once a week, give you an example on that, I plug my router to try and get it refreshed and nice and clean for the next use of internet speed that I may need. So those are some things that you should do as well. But also too, making sure that your network is working for you. Do you have your LinkedIn profile? Hey, I was on a call the other day, and I was talking, and little did I know, a recruiter was looking for my profile, and unfortunately they couldn't find it. So I need to stress that it is important for you to get that information up to you in regards to your branding. Now, one of the things I did touch on is that networking piece in college. I did talk about at a high level in regards to your student groups that you can be part of, the volunteering that you may do. But like I said, the career services team there is great. They have a lot of different resources, whether that's engaging with the faculty there or practice interviews. They hear from people like BP and other organizations on what they're doing and how to help you prepare. Definitely leverage those resources that you have at the career services and classes as well. You can reach out to faculty or staff that maybe you have a good rapport with and you're building a relationship with, to ask them who is in their network that they might know. Do you know anybody at BP? I've been looking at their website, and they have a lot of great opportunities here in Chicago and Houston and Cherry Point. They may say, last year we did a virtual event, and here's their contact information. The other piece is other resources that you may have, like student groups to help you out doing a practice interview, or have you look at connecting with someone there in your university to help you navigate the job search, or to help you navigate interviewing or networking. There's a lot of great resources out there in this virtual environment. How are we doing, Amy? Any questions so far before I kick through to the next slide?
There is one question in the chat, actually.
Awesome.
Other than LinkedIn, do companies look at possible other people's online platforms like Facebook, YouTube videos, Instagram, Twitter, etc.?
Yeah, great question. And the short answer is yes, folks. There are companies out there who do that, because at the end of the day, you're going to that organization, and they may have various recruitment practices. And give an example is background checks, right? We do background checks for certain positions that are high visibility or high risk, and to mitigate that, they may look at, obviously your LinkedIn profiles, but they may also do a search. If, for example, your communications and communications role or some other role that may require you being visible, they may want to make sure that your other social media platforms are in line with their values and behaviors. What I mean by that is they may be looking for such things that maybe might be of a risk of getting out. I had someone that I know in Hollywood who had some pretty fun and interesting pictures on his online social media platform, and I said, it's best to maybe make those private during the job search process. We get it. We love to post what we had for dinner or what our cat had for dinner on Facebook or Instagram or whatever the case may be. But there are some people who may look at some biases with various things, and you want to try and minimize that as much as possible. So that is how I would answer whether or not companies look at other social media platforms. The only thing I've specifically done in my history has been to look at LinkedIn profiles. And to me, that can be enough. I don't need to go into Facebook or Instagram, things like that. I hope that answers your question in regards to other platforms.
Thanks for that.
Awesome. And then the last piece here in this slide that I think is important is to talk to recent graduates, right? No one really wants to hear sometimes, some old guy Mike Laha talking about, what recruitment activities are. So I brought recent graduates and recent alumni to share this message on tools, tips, and tricks. So if there is an alumni event at your school or in your area that you can chat with someone, it's a great way to just catch up, build your network, and to hear what's going on in the recent recruitment trends, especially with this COVID stuff. It's always constantly changing, it seems like. And if you are a freshman, sophomore, you need to start looking for internships. Starting as early as possible is always best. Don't wait to say, oh, well, once I graduate, I'm gonna do an internship. That's a little bit late. I always encourage folks to start as soon as possible, looking for an internship so you can build not only that network, build that skill sets that you have, but also to build on the foundation of, hey, I'm going to school for finance. After doing an internship in finance, folks, you might find out, no, I like supply chain. So I always think it's important to help start building that knowledge base and that network, but also to build that understanding about what you're walking into as far as your initial career choice. You hear a lot of times that people went to school for one thing and they end up doing something totally different. I think that is a great way to help build on that foundation of your educational background, but a great way to go for an internship. I've had folks who've spent 2 years with us here doing their internship, and was very successful for them, and then it eventually turned into a full-time position for them. And actually, I have some of those folks here on the call today, which I'm very much a pleasure to introduce Steve, Erica, Laurel, and Nan here today on the phone. They are members of our team. They have various positions all throughout BP and all throughout the US. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the members of my team here. I'm going to go ahead and start with Erica. And Erica, are you on the line? Are you able to connect with us?
Yep. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay.
Awesome. Loud and clear.
So a little bit about me. I'm originally from Arizona. I moved to Washington State for high school and college. I'm a recent graduate from WSU. I actually graduated December 2020, so actually pretty recently. I did a bachelor in business administration, double major in international business and MIS. So hopefully there's fellow similar majors out there. And over the last summer, I interned with the marketing supply team at Cherry Point Refinery here in Blaine, Washington. And then after my internship ended, I had another semester at school. And then I was actually brought back onto the same team. And then now I'm in that role of product initiatives coordinator. And then in addition to some of those bullet points on the slide, I also kind of work with data, pulling data from databases and then putting it into Excel and tabs to generate different dashboards. And then I also analyze data to determine critical key metrics to kind of interpret fluctuations in daily performance. What I enjoy most about working at BP is that the people are always super friendly. Whenever I have questions or need coverage, people are always willing to help. So that is definitely something I really, really do enjoy. And then Michael had gone over some of the advice for college students, but as an example, I personally did use the college resources. I went to the Carson Center to get some help on my resume, and then I also had them review my cover letter. It really helps to have a second eye and some, I guess, tips from these professionals on how to make your resume look really good. And then also regarding being involved in school activities, I was personally involved in Circle K International. It's a community service group and we go out and help the community. So that's always nice to be well-rounded aside from being really involved in academics. And then another point was really connecting with faculty. Some of the professors are industry professionals that have been in the industry for years or decades, and they decided to go into teaching. So they definitely have a lot of experience and they're always willing to talk to you during their office hours or just after class. They might be able to provide you good information if you're interested in a specific industry and you want to learn more. Definitely connect with them and they're happy to help. And then also all of us here are happy to connect with you on LinkedIn if you have further questions that you didn't want to ask here in the meeting. So yeah, are there any questions about me or anything? Feel free to come off mute or pop it in the chat as well.
Hey everyone, hope you can hear me okay. My name is Steve Mccutchen. I'm lucky enough to still get to join the recent grad programs, even though I think I'm pushing it now, graduating in 2016. So I've been with BP for 5 years now, but it's always great to reconnect with Cougs. This last year didn't get to do on in-person on-campus recruiting at WSU, but I love to come back and do that. A little bit about me. I'm currently in a investment analyst role with BP. So basically, you can think about that like the different parts of the businesses have, budgets every year, and people within those different groups, whether it's at our refineries or building retail stations, they need to spend their dollars effectively. So the team that I work on helps determine if putting dollars towards certain projects makes for a good investment and is a good use of shareholder capital. I'm originally from Washington State. I got a chance to move to California for my first role with BP. I did take another stop back in Washington before I moved out to Chicago, but that's sort of my path here. BP has a rotational program that I took part in coming out of college. So you can see there's a few roles up there. I'm happy to talk in more detail about any of those or answer questions otherwise. But, it was a good program to give me a little flavor for different parts of the business. I was not a marketing major, but in my first role, I got to get some fundamentals under my belt for the marketing function. Then I worked in more of a business development type of role at one of our refineries, Cherry Point Refinery in Washington, where essentially we looked at new business opportunities. So there's of course, a team that's responsible for running a refinery and optimizing what we have. But then there's also a team that looks at, what sort of new activity can we do? How can we make additional revenue streams off of this asset or this piece of the business. So that was the team I worked on. And then since 2018, when I moved to Chicago, I've been on a few different roles within the business investment team. And that's the one I was mentioning at the top. We look at how should we use shareholder dollars? What should we invest in to make money for our shareholders? So I was a Washington State grad, as I said. I did engineering as well as business administration. And I've had my eye on finance for quite a while. So I also have completed the CFA program since graduating. What I'm like most about BP is that it's a big company, so everything is a team effort, and we get really great results by collaborating. Really, nothing gets done in a silo. There's no like solo projects. I could have put a lot of things on this slide for like best advice, but I would say one thing is bring a good attitude. Your skills may be similar to your peers at college. You might not be that differentiated based on the limited work experience you have coming out of school. But if you just try and be a good person, follow up, do what you say you're going to do, be honest when you make a mistake and learn from it, that goes a long way. It really matters that people enjoy working with you. So try and do that.
Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. So my name's Laurel Erdman. I am currently a pricing analyst and graduated from Washington State in 2017. Go Cougs. I'm from Ferndale, Washington, which is a very small town, northwest Washington, and currently I'm located in Chicago, Illinois. I've worked on a bunch of different teams. I think Steve mentioned the Challenger program, which is a great 3-year rotational program, which typically takes place after your internships. So if you have questions about any of those roles, obviously feel free to type them in the chat or come off mute. Education, like I said, Washington State University. I have my undergrad and master's in accounting. If you take a look at my work history, no accounting there. I'll just jump to my best advice for college students since that's pretty applicable. Your major, which of course is accounting for me, doesn't necessarily determine your career path, and it's never too late to get curious and try something new. And I found that the Challenger program at BP was really, really useful for me and was really fun to work on a whole bunch of different teams. And then, the last thing, what I enjoy most about BP is my coworkers. Again, worked on a couple but different teams here, and it's really been great how welcoming and kind everyone is on each team. So yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you for sharing, Laurel. And I apologize. I meant to take myself off mute here as I was doing the intro slides, but a little technical difficulties. So thank you for sharing that. And then next on our panel list is Matt.
Hi everyone, hope that everyone can hear me. My name is Nam Nguyen. I am currently a multi-site contract operator coordinator at BP, or we call MSCO coordinator. I was born and raised in Vietnam for 17 years before I moved to the US in 2013. I graduated from Washington State University Carson College of Business with a BA in Business Administration and a dual degree in International Business and Marketing. So I interned with BP in summer 2019 as a marketing intern in our Chicago office, where I involved with a business-to-business marketing project for Fuel North America. And then also I run the competitor analysis and involved in the offer development and differentiation project. After that, I received a full-time offer to return to BP for the rotational program that Steve mentioned earlier. So both Erica and myself are in that program right now. In August 2020, I start my first rotational role as a retail operations support analyst for our co-AM PM here in the West Coast. So I'm actually here in Seattle right now. as well. So and then since January 2021, I stepped into the MSCO coordinator role. So what I enjoyed about BP is that I get to get involved with the net zero and the reimagining energy process for the betterment of the world and our planet. If you follow BP on like social media, you would know that like BP involved a lot with renewable energy and the net zero effort to become a net zero company. So so I'm glad to be part of that process. And then for the advice that I have for college students is that I would just recommend that you stay curious and don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone. If you see the photo on the right, bottom right, that's for me in Antarctica in 2017. So a fun fact about myself is that like as a student at WSU, I was fortunate to become the first student to have ever studied abroad on all 7 continents. So that was a picture of me in Antarctica. Also recommend that like you would use like all of the resources that the college provide. I remember that I were part of the ambassador programs at Carson College of Business, and then I got a lot of support from the college from seeing the business consultant to have looking into my resume. I attend the breakfast with BP event with that actually end up turning out into the internship offer for me in 2019. So yeah, highly recommend to just utilize and leverage all of the opportunities and resources being offered by the college. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, man. And, now it is to the point where, I want to open it up to Q&A. I do have a couple other slides that does talk about a little bit more in detail with our benefits of an internship or benefits of a position here at BP. But you heard from our team, our recent college graduates. Steve, I think you're more recent than I am, so I'll let you stay in that bucket. But one of the key points that I took away that I want the students to know is that you heard from me as a recruiter talk about, what I think is important. And then, obviously we had Erica talk about those campus resources. So her and I said that. You had Steve talk about, being your best self. And that goes along with excellence and being prepared. Laurel talked about, being curious. The major not defining, who you are. That's a great way to look at, obviously confirming early on, getting involved as a freshman, as a sophomore in various groups and internships to really determine, hey, do you want to continue on with that major? And then Nam, said a great piece of advice too, in regards to, stepping out of your comfort zone, try different things, put yourself, if you're in a situation where you don't have any leadership experience, join that campus team, in regards to it being a finance group or a diversity group. Join it. Maybe there's a way for you to get a leadership role there as a treasurer or as a assistant deputy of some sort. Those are great resources to use. I know we ran through a couple, and I definitely want to make sure that I leave as much time as possible to tell you a little bit more about the internships here at BP. But does anybody have questions in regards to what we just covered about tools, tips, and tricks here at BP or outside of BP? Is there something maybe that you want to know about the recruitment process? Maybe some things that NAM did to be, on 7 continents, or whether it was in regards to a question that maybe Erica brought up. Please feel free to put that in the chat or come off mute. We'd love to hear from you. As I'm trying to get control of my slides here, I'll let the moderator manage the chat box.
There looks like there is a question in the chat. You said the Challenger program was a 3-year program where you get to experience different roles, correct? And do they choose the role in which you perform best per se?
Yeah, it's a great question. So unfortunately, you are only able to apply for one internship at a time. So when you go into a company website, you can see all the different internship opportunities that they have, and there may be 50 or 100. But what's cool about BP is you are able to put in the year that you graduate, the educational background that you have, to really kind of help navigate from 100 positions to maybe only show 4 positions. So once you review those 4 positions, you find a position that best suits your interest, you can apply for that. The internship and Challenger program are a little bit different, but the Challenger program puts you in that rotational piece that is normally like a new job every 3 years. And you do have the opportunity to move and relocate at the company's expense. We do look for, obviously, those individuals' interests, desires, and motivations in regards to the career path that you have. So we will talk with you during that first year or that first rotation that you're in to kind of help guide you in an area of interest, obviously, that you're in, but also too, it's based upon the needs of the business. Give an example. You may have the opportunity to move once or 3 times during that rotation, but for a legacy program that we have, you may do finance 1 year, then you may do accounting if that is something that you're interested in, or finance, depending on the availability and depending on what you and your mentor decide on. And if that's available, we'd love to be able to offer you that program. But there are some folks who stay, for example, in supply chain and logistics their entire 3-year rotational program, but they may have a new group or may have a new position that they're supporting. Any other additions to that, Steve, Laurel, or Nan, Erica?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Steve.
I would say there's a specific sort of list of competencies and skills that the company wants you to leave the Challenger or the rotational experience with. So there's a mix of what skills do you still need to develop, and they look for that in the roles that you haven't done, and also what you're interested in. So they try and match up those 2 things so that you're getting the experience you want, and you're also leaving the program with the skills that the company wants you to have developed by the time you're done with the 3-year rotational program.
So you'd say it's like a good mix of like learning new skills and using what you already have, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to add on that too, the question around if you get to choose your roles, you definitely get to preferentially rank them. And like Steve said, it is based on a combination of what competencies you're looking to develop and what your mentor and the program thinks you still need to develop. So you do get to have some say in the matter, but definitely it's a really good program that kind of puts you in some positions, some rotations that you wouldn't necessarily have sometimes when you think about what you would do with your major. So again, for me, for example, my major was in accounting, but really enjoyed my rotations in supply chain. So definitely a good way to kind of experience different areas of the business and learn about BP holistically, if that's something you're interested in doing.
Thank you.
I think that we have a student who raised their hand. So Jay, so you just come off mute and ask your question.
Oh, hi. I just wanted to ask, I wanted to like try looking for internships that are like international or like just away from where I am, just to experience things. How would you recommend I go about finding those, and how do I stand out?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And I think it boils down to building your network, Jade. Definitely very important to make sure, your LinkedIn profile is up to date, because those international positions, they definitely can be a little bit more complicated. So you want to make yourself as marketable as possible. It's not just a resume, because they probably will more than likely check out your LinkedIn profile for that. But when you go into LinkedIn and you update your profile and you do, kind of put in there that piece that you are interested in that, you can start connecting with your global organizations like BP, like your Amazons or Googles, what have you, to really follow those companies and then have them notify you automatically where and when those opportunities are open for people to apply. The other piece is that your keyword searches need to be a little bit more targeted when looking at those company websites. For example, most of our positions are governed by country. So we do have positions in Canada and Trinidad, Asia, etc. But those are usually geared towards the person who's actually sitting in those countries. So I think the best way for you to do it is actually go to the company websites and read through their internship and graduate opportunities to see what they're looking to do. Now, the picture that you see on the screen is a virtual environment. You have a better chance, honestly, these days of obtaining that opportunity because we can do these things virtual now. The one thing that opened up in this post-COVID environment is the ability to do this from anywhere, right? I have a fancy background. You don't know if I'm coming to you live from my dining room or I'm at a Starbucks. Same thing with your internship internationally. It could be with an international company, or it could be a position that may be supporting, somewhere in Europe, but you can do that anywhere these days. So utilize that LinkedIn network, read those job postings, go to those company websites, ask those recruiters those questions, and utilize the alumni community as well to find out what and where those opportunities are for international roles. Does that make sense? Awesome. So yeah, the COVID environment did not stop our internship program. This is our interns from last year, which is a great bunch of folks. Every year it's wonderful to work with the next generation of talent here. So these opportunities are still happening, whether we continue in a opening environment, post-lockdown. Companies will still have a internship and graduate opportunities. But what do those look like here at BP? They are pretty well defined as far as being a development program, right? We know we're bringing in college students or college graduates, so we do have a lot of learning and development opportunities for you. We stay with you, from orientation all the way until another part of your developmental program. What I mean by that is I have Erica with us here today. She was one of those people in those photos that you had a chance to see there, and she's been with us less than a year, and now she's out, on campus here doing the virtual event and sharing with you her best practices that landed her a position here at BP. There is a lot of different benefits to the program that I'll talk about in the following slides. But what we do in those internships and in these developmental programs is some of the things that we talked about early on that you can do to be successful to land an internship. Look at your screen. You got networking events. You got the buddy program, right? Networking pieces. You have community service opportunities that you can do here while as an intern and while as a employee. You should be doing that, folks, to build your network and to get yourself out there and building your brand. It's a great practice. I definitely encourage people to do that. One of the other things I want to highlight is the benefits, because I know, Jade, you just talked about, hey, how do I get a international opportunity? Hey, that's great. But when I think of international, I think of, wow, where am I going to live? Well, BP is cool because we give you corporate housing. For example, in Chicago, you get a high-rise apartment for 12 weeks. You don't have to worry about those living expenses other than food. I mean, they're fully furnished apartments. Napkins, utensils, towels, sheets, all that good stuff's included. So all you have to do is bring a change of clothes for those 12 weeks and the picture of mom and dad. Other benefits include, things like 401k and definitely a competitive pay package. So, you can hear about these things through our website or through instances like these, but definitely utilize your network there on LinkedIn to ask or research what some of the other benefits are. The next slide I wanted to cover with you here is around the graduate program. We had already touched base with that, but it is a developmental program because, you know, you may go to school for finance and or accounting of that nature, but actually working in that rotational program, you had a chance to work with the marketing team or the supply team, and you stepped out of your comfort zone that Laurel had talked about, and now maybe you want to do something totally different. You have that opportunity to you know, show what it is you're interested in every time you meet with your buddy or you meet with your mentor, because you will have the opportunity as well to work in a global community. I was actually working the other day with a person from Asia, and we were chit-chatting about the time zone differences. So that was one piece for me to get used to as well. So I think it's definitely important when you look at, you know, your internship in landing a successful one in research and preparing for that, because these are things that you may be not knowing that you should be considering. Benefits, I think, is a huge piece to definitely get you set up with success. And looking at the company websites are definitely important for that, along with leveraging your network. And again, benefits in regards to college graduates are a little bit different. You can have a chance to read through some of those there. But I actually want to hear you know, from you. I was going to play a video, but I want to be conscious of everybody's time. And I'm not sure with the bandwidth issues if this will play. So with that being said, that is all I have in regards to what I wanted to share about with you, other than the key points that are on the slide deck here that you can have a chance to visit our website. I will pop them into the chat box. We have a lot of great information out there, so I encourage you to utilize LinkedIn, utilize the career services that was talked about, utilize, you know, your community involvement, what you're doing outside the classroom, and then obviously do your research as well. You'll hear a lot of great tools, tips, and tricks as you do these sessions, as you chat with those career services, those faculty members, and those members of your community. Any questions that we have in the chat box?
Are you guys? You can go ahead. You can go ahead.
How valuable do you think it is to get a degree, like maybe at like Washington State University, and then like taking that degree over to like another country? And how, like, because it might, like, I feel like the degree might be more valuable in another country versus like in the United States, where it's pretty competitive. What do you think about that?
I think from an early career standpoint, your brand is more important than a degree. You know, type in order to land that kind of opportunity. I think, you know, again, it boils down to, you know, folks, you can go to school, get a 4.0, but, you know, working with a person who maybe has a 4.0 is not as fun as it may be working with a person who has a 3.2 GPA. So it's your teamwork and collaboration skills. That goes along the lines with, you know, I think, you know, where you went to school. I think WSU is definitely a well-known school, great school, has a lot of great programs. I have a lot of WSU grads that, you know, I've had a chance to work with. But when we look at, you know, our expats, and we look at sending someone to the UK or to Trinidad or to Asia, we don't look at their degree or where they went to school. You know, we look at their values and behaviors and their work product. So those are major pieces. School can help kind of get you in the door, and where you went to school and your GPA to some extent. But, you know, there's that interview or that internship that you have in your experience to then kind of help land yourself in an international opportunity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're saying that like your work experience and like your brand is more important than the degree.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's a great addition, you know, where you went to school and what type of degree you have. But it's more important about what you're bringing to that international position that companies are going to look at.
Yeah, and by like when you say your brand is really important, you mean like what you post on like like across like all your social media platforms like that, or like your past work experience, or like your LinkedIn profile, like what's on your resume?
Yeah, your brand, how you show up, how other people perceive you. I could try to be the nicest person all day long as much as I want to, but if people don't see me as that, you know, that's obviously, you know, a disconnect there, but that is my brand, who you know, right? If I show you a Coke can, you recognize that brand, you know it for quality, you know it for consistency, right? You know it for taste. Same thing with Mike Laha. When you have to work with Mike Laha on a project, you're knowing, right, what his brand is. You know that he's going to be welcoming your ideas. You know that he's going to be available at, you know, any time of the day for you to be accessing, you know, a time slot with him. Same thing with your brand is as a recent college grad. Your brand is going to show up who you are in that behavior-based interview. That interview is going to determine, you know, how well you play in the sandbox with others, your teamwork, collaboration, your ability to prioritize tasks. Those are the pieces when I refer to as brand. If I'm not sure about your brand and I just had your application for one of our internships, I may look at your LinkedIn profile. Are you, yes, is your brand to lend words of encouragement to, you know, someone who's maybe voiced a frustration about the application process? Are you a person who's lent, you know, congratulations a lot to people in your alumni sector? Is your brand that you're maybe posting a couple of things about what's going on in the finance industry, right? So that's the kind of brand that I'm referring to on what others perceive that your message and work style may be about.
Okay.
I have a question. Are you guys going to be at the career fair this year?
So I will definitely say yes, but when we look at whether it's, you know, virtual and in person, those conversations are still going on. But I'm absolutely planning to be at the career fair in some capacity, and I'll bring Steve and the bunch, Laurel and Erica, if they'll go as well.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we just want to be keeping on time. This is great. Lots of great questions and good connections to make. So I just wanted to just say here, thank you to Stephen and Erica, Nam, Laurel, and Michael for sharing this afternoon with us. It was very, very informative, and I'm sure a lot of us got just some great connections there. As a reminder, I want to ask all attendees to please complete the survey that is in the chat before logging off. As you complete the survey, I do have some announcements as you're doing that on your screen. Our last session for the series is how to maximize your informational interview, being led by Slalom. In addition, we just had that great question at the end about the career fair. Students can register for the career fair on Handshake. So just log into Handshake, look up fairs, and you can go ahead and register for both the internship fair and career networking night. And last but not least, Michael touched on this a lot. Use your resources. You have the Carson Center where you can meet with a career consultant that will help you look for that international job or internship that you may be looking for, interview prep, resume support. All these resources are there, and you can all do that just on Handshake. So with that, I just want to take a second again to thank our wonderful guests. We appreciate everyone's participation in the Carson Career Summer Series, and we'll see you at the next event. Go Cougs!
Go Cougs. Thank you.
Go Cougs. Thanks.